So you want to retire early. How much income do you need, and how much do you need set aside to be able to do that? I'm Quinn Waddington, Portfolio Manager at Canaccord Genuity Wealth Management, and I'm here to help you answer that question. Before we get started, I'm hoping you can help me by subscribing, liking, and sharing this video, as I think getting a little financial literacy out there will go a long way. And who knows, maybe we can help one of your friends or family members retire early along with you. So the income question. Generally, when we're doing a retirement plan for somebody who is, say, 65, we take about 70% of their income in the last year of work. So if they were making $100,000, we take $70,000 as the income they're going to require in retirement. Now we do that, gross it down a bit, because there's generally no mortgage to pay, there's no children to support, and there's no savings for retirement needed after you've retired. So 70% is a decent number to start with. Now, if you're retiring early, you may have children to support and you may still have a mortgage. So that number may have to be 80 or 90 or even 100% of your income. So that's something to consider. Now take whatever that number is. So if we stick with that $70,000 number and you multiply that out by a rule of thumb, we use about 25. So that's working at about 4% rate of return. 25 times the $70,000 is $1.75 million. Now that's assuming that you needed to pull $70,000 out of your investments. When you retire at 65, one of the big benefits you get is CPP and OAS. So maybe you're making $20,000 in CPP and OAS, and if we exclude anything else on the income side, now instead of $70,000, you only need $50,000. So that's a lot smaller number, and we're looking at $1.25 million that you need set aside. Now, of course, if you have pensions or other incomes, that $50,000 may be even lower than that, and then your investments needed are even lower. So those are things to consider. Of course, if you retire early, say you want to retire at 50, then you're not going to have access to CPP and OAS. And again, you may have mortgages and you may have child support. So maybe that $100,000 of income you were looking for still has to be $100,000 in retirement, at least until you get to 60 or 65 when you start taking your CPP and OAS. So you're going to need a much larger number. If you take that 100,000 and multiply by 25, you're at 2.5 million. Now again, if you can find some income in other places, you might be able to drop that, but that's something definitely to consider. So what are the issues here? Now you can see, if you're running the numbers, you can see 4% is a pretty conservative number on the investment side, considering especially lately what the stock markets have been doing. But why do we take that conservative number? Obviously we don't want you to run out of money in retirement because there's not much looking back at that point. But some of the considerations you need to take in as you get older, your health is a big consideration and could be very expensive depending on what happens in life. Obviously our healthcare system helps to a large extent, but there's always extra costs in the healthcare world, so you need to be aware of those. Divorce is something that I've seen, especially if you're retiring early. You've got plenty of time there, but we've also seen many seniors retire and everything is split between the two of them, but now they've got two separate lives, basically reducing their lifestyle abilities in retirement. So something to consider. Taxes is another thing. Obviously we take that into account when we devise plans, how to get money in and out, how to be in tax efficient investments. All of that is to be considered, what other incomes you have, but it's definitely something to look at. And we also don't know, going way far out, what the government's going to do with taxes. Are they going to increase the rates? So something, again, to take into consideration and have a buffer for. And the last thing, which is big news lately, is inflation. Now, over 1 year, it may not be a big deal whether it's 2% or 4%, may not make a massive difference in your life, but if you take that out 30, 40 years, if you're retiring at 50 and you're going to live till 90 or 95 or 100, that's a long time. And if you're not planning, if your inflation hedge or calculation is only the 2% and we happen to be up in the 4 or 5% for an extended period, that's going to cut into your lifestyle expense. So those are things you want to consider and why you want to have a much larger buffer and not just go with the stock market returning 10%, so I'm going to use that. On the opposite side, what can you do? If you run those numbers and you realize you're a bit short or you want to retire earlier than those numbers are telling you, what can you do? Obviously, working longer is the main reason there. I mean, what everybody would normally do is just work longer, but we're here to retire early. So what are the other options? How about semi-retirement? People have done that. You know, if the work is hard on you, but you're able to do it 25 or 50% of the time, and that makes your life balance so much better, and it might make your work life better as well to only be doing it half the time, that's going to drag down the amount of money you're pulling out early in retirement, because you can supplement with a little more income. So that's definitely something to consider. Savings is the obvious one. You need to save more money. So RSPs, TFSAs, making the most of those. Again, going back to the tax questions, making the most of your investments, putting your non-registered investments in tax-efficient portfolios, maxing out RSPs and TFSAs as best you can, adding that extra $50 or $100 a month every time you get a raise, or putting that bonus away. Any money you can save, especially early on, will compound out and save you years of working if you really do want to retire early. To save more, you can adjust your lifestyle. You can adjust your lifestyle before you retire, but you can also adjust your lifestyle after you retire. So you can crank down the amount of money you want to have in retirement, and that will help save you even more money. Obviously, we talked about the difference between $100,000 and $70,000 and how much money you need to set aside. So if you can crank down your lifestyle expense after, especially if you're retiring early and you're going to have a long retirement, that's going to make a massive difference on the amount of money you need to save. And then the last thing, which we incorporate into plans, but what is your real estate position? Do you need to retire in the giant house that you purchased or the large townhouse that you purchased, or can you move and downsize to a condo? And I know these aren't realistic numbers in the Lower Mainland or anywhere in the Greater Toronto area either, but say you have $1 million home, can you downsize to, say, a $700,000 townhouse or a condo, take that $300,000 and add it to your portfolio when you retire and start using that to generate income? So those are things to definitely consider going in. Obviously, the largest part of all of this is to have a plan. You can't do anything just trying to throw money at it. It's not going to work. Your best option is to plan it all out from the start and then work with that plan as life comes at you. Maybe you'll start loving your job and you won't want to retire, but if you can plan to retire early and put away that money and be disciplined about it, then later in life you're going to have a ton of options when it comes time to, do you want to retire early? Do you want to keep going? Do you want to semi-retire? All of those things, you're going to have way more options. So that's what I'm thinking on the retirement plan. Contact us if you want to go through that. You want to put together a plan on how to retire early, how you can get out there. Happy to talk. Give us a call, 604-699-0874. You can reach me on my website to book a time. Look forward to chatting. Till next time.